Right, welcome back to the drawing board, everyone. My name is Paul Clayton, and joining me soon will be my partner in crime, Kenny Calderone. I hope everyone is doing well wherever you are in the world right now. We are currently moving through our Masters of the Universe series, and we are at Teela at the moment. So, for those of us who have been joining from the beginning, we've gone through He-Man and Skeletor and Man-at-Arms and Merman, Beastman. We've done a few. And we are now at the tail end of Teela before we move on to our next project, which is Zodak. And we have a few other things on the boiler as well. So if you're joining me for the first time on this show, Kenny and I sort of move through what we're doing in terms of our technical processes. We talk through the art, the thoughts that we go through as we're creating our imagery. And then, you know, if you're listening in, you can comment in, you can ask questions as we go, and we share hints and tips and techniques of how we do this on the way. So, feel free to jump in and comment when you can, and we'll get started. So as you can see from the last time on the live stream, I've sort of been working through some of my little textures, working through some of the golds on the armor, and also building up some of the flesh tones. Today I'm just going to try and finish off the armor, work on some of the weaponry, and try and get, I don't know if I'll move it up a bit. I'm going to try and complete part of the downed battle ring and get into those textures. So you can see I'll put in a bit of an underpainting here, which has got a semi-dry now. I'm just going to do it while we're running up our live stream. And I'm going to put like a vinyl texture there, like a seating texture, some of the foam metal. And then of course we're going to have like a sort of a red glowing turbine at the back of this exhaust here. Some smoke sort of billowing up, which would be nice sort of frame the edge of her skin tone there. And then down here probably working on just getting some of that bright sort of sticker art that we saw, that funky sticker art from the 80s. So in the action figures and the original designs. I think that'll work well. So I'm just going to bring up our inspiration page. So this came up in one of Kenny's live stream as to how we generate our images and where we draw our inspiration from, and are we mimicking something that has previously been done? And the answer I would say to that is a little bit of all of the above, really. So we look at obviously the original illustration for Teela or any of the characters, which is that the Mark Taylor one, which is that small illustration in the middle there next to the word Teela on the right. And you can see there it's very much watercolor and ink as a concept design of what Teela would look like. Now that is the design that they went from there to what we know as the Teela toy design. And you can see people have drawn from that from Filmation to the mini comics and even now today with Sideshow. So if I move around that design there, you can see on the left you've got Teela in her Cobra armor, and that is the design that appeared on the back of the toy. So she came with her armor, and you can see she kept the staff, but it's more the Cobra staff. You can see on the right of that we've got the Filmation, which is the 80s cartoon. And that is obviously a stylized version of that, but that's the one that's probably the most recognizable to everybody. We have the mini comics version that used to come with the action figure. You can see Teela there. And on the right we have more of the latest iteration, which is the Sideshow sculpture of Teela with her weaponry. Hey Chris Borman, how are we doing? Thanks for joining us here today. Kenny's going to be a little bit late, so he's stuck with me just for the first hour. So Kenny will be along. He's attending an important engagement with his family. So we're going to make a start anyhow. But stick around, because at the end of the show we've got a special announcement as to where we're moving forward. And I reckon, Chris, it might be something you want to jump on board with. So I think you'll love it. So anyway, so that's the inspiration for Teela. So we put one of these together every time we have a new character we're working on, and we kind of just pick and choose what we like the best, and what we think is going to ground ours in a new reality on our illustration, and I guess too what we like, like there's some parts of the illustration that Kenny and I go, that was okay, but it's not really quite sort of chiming the bells. But there are other areas we go, I just love how kitschy and bright that is, maybe how camp the colours are sometimes, or how much it just chimes into our nostalgia as well. So I guess it's kind of an amalgam of all of those things which helps us to create our image. So where are we on our little line up here? So Teela will be finished today. We're determined to get this done. And our next one on the Master of the Universe run is Zoda, which is going to be interesting. He's an intergalactic sort of traveller. So that'll be interesting. We have Evil Lynn, or Evelyn, which I think is great. Then we have Faker, which is the kind of the blue sort of android He-Man variation, which will be interesting to do. Again, with funky colours. We have Many Faces, which will be interesting to see which one Kenny chooses for that, the interchangeable faces. Ram Man, Trapjaw, and Triclops. So we've got a good run. I've done a Triclops quite a while ago, but it's been a while since I've done a Trapjaw and Triclops, so it'll be interesting to see what changes up. So here we are, just me doing a little drawing at the moment. So I was just saying, Chris, that I've just put in a bit of underpainting here for the seat, and I'm going to create like a vinyl sort of effect for the seating area here for the back of the Ram, and we're going to move along doing some steel effects, and then I'll probably flip the switch and go back in while that's drying, move in and create some of those gold effects around the breastplate, shield, gauntlet and sword. So it should be on the way today. So you'll probably usually find after you get some of those heavy anatomy pieces out of the way, you get the lighting rolling, the face is done, everything moves reasonably quick unless you get caught noodling. That's the big thing. So let's roll. So I'm just mixing a bit of Prussian blue, a bit of black, a bit of white. And that will create my sort of steel effect that I've got going there. I'm not sure what the temperature is like with you guys, but it's quite a hot day here today. So I've got the fan going in the background, keeping us cool. I'm going to order a little mobile air conditioner during the week from Amazon, and that seems to be doing the trick nicely. So hopefully this keeps my phone cool this week, because last week we overheated. So let's roll ahead. So let's get a little bit of okay, so let's get a little bit of that. That. I'm sort of free drawing the painting here at the moment, just to get the design clear in my head. So there are some weird sort of paneling and things like that on this. I'm not sure how detailed I'll go with that. I think I might come in later and sort of put in a few little panels and things like that, but I might keep it fairly monotone just to keep focus on Teela, really. So Chris Borman, what have you been drawing this week? I noticed you've been putting up a bit of Star Wars stuff. Can you see what you're up to at the moment? If you're not following Chris, make sure you do. Oh, it's cold out, I suppose it would be shifting seasons. Yeah. I should change brushes for this one. Go upscale a little bit. Nice chisel edge there. It's always good to work on that upper panel because then I can work on the under shadow. Yeah, I saw your Chirrut. That was pretty good, Chris. What's your plan with all of those pencil drawings? Is it practice stuff, or are you putting it into a book or some prints? Let's see. Yeah, well, this is just a bit of art therapy during the week, which I think we all need from time to time. For sure. Right, give me a chance to skirt around her boot here. So, I'm going to scumble in this upper layer. So what I find this does is that putting in a light wash, I don't want to buckle the paper too much, so just a very light wash helps to put a grounding in. So when I start to put in my secondary layer on top of it, it has something to bite into, and it creates a much more pleasing effect and gives me something a little bit more consistent to work with. Sometimes when you're putting gouache down on large surfaces, it gets a little bit streaky. So this helps me to kind of build my layers up a little bit. And it's a good way to test run your color choice and your palette choice as well. If you remember the original toy for the Battle Ram, it had a real bluey green effect. There were some that came out that had a really weird green to it, like almost like Castle Grayskull green. But the ones that I saw always had this kind of metal blue sort of effect to it. So I need a break from painting cover covers, drawing pencil sketches, and Star Wars sketchbook. I feel you, Chris. I'm in exactly the same spot. You kind of, it's a great problem to have when you are working on the covers. And when you're doing, like Kenny and I sort of been doing a lot of the trading cards. It's a great thing to have that kind of workflow coming through, but also leaves you a bit product poor when you get to the table. So yeah, I'm one of the goals I have this year is to try and get some product ready for the convention table. So I hear exactly where you're at. being the weather is what it is right now, it's kind of drying as I'm going, which is a bad problem, especially with gouache. You can always reactivate it as you're rolling, but it can create problems if you are relying on that wet mixture. Alright, so I'm going to let that settle for a bit. Shift gears to whacking at the top bit here. Mixing up again, mix up the new batch because dry it up. There we go. So if you're joining us here for Back to the Drawing Board, thank you so much. It's always great to have people along for the ride and to engage with. Kenny and I really appreciate it every week. The further we go down the pathway of this, it's nice to have people along for the ride. Otherwise, just listening to the insane ramblings in my head, which is probably not helpful for everyone. Oh, is it Chris? Sorry, I didn't realise. It must be from interesting. How's that? Is that better? So a little bit of a lighter tone there. I don't want the dark to dominate the light areas too much. So they dropped the Fantastic Four trailer there, Chris. Did you manage to check that out yet? I watched it this morning. It seemed I was pretty pleased. It looked pretty good, actually. Love the costumes. It looked pretty solid. Now, if you remember correctly, he's got this weird, his battle ram's got this funny little handle here where they kind of grip inside of it, around the outside of it. It doesn't real, I don't know if it would pass health and safety regulations, but they seem to make it work in the Eternia-verse. All right. Okay, wacky a little bit. Show that. All right, sorry, I just had to pause for a minute while I'm just putting some little delicate fine touches in. Dragging that line up there like that. Okay, so let's get a shadow in there. It's actually kind of helpful because I was falling a little bit behind Kenny because he works so quickly in the backgrounds, and it's nice to be able to catch up a little bit because his background is nearly just about finished. If you're joining us for the first time, please like and subscribe and comment on our videos. That's always super helpful, apparently, with the algorithms. So we appreciate all of you guys doing that. Always helps to keep the wheels moving. And it's always encouraging too. There like that. Might drop that just in that handle and just a little bit darker, I think, because I kind of want it to drop away right into shadow. I'm just going to add a little bit more ivory black to my Prussian blue. Not going to go straight black just yet. Just enough to deepen that shadow up a little bit there. Right, so that will then drift that into a highlight, which is nice. Like so. Again, just try not to overpower my paper too much. Just going to take it crude, just take it easy there. And I've got to be careful too with my composition that it's always moving in angles that brings it back to the main focus. So no matter what I do, if I'm adding a shadow in or an angle, it's always got to eventually go from the turbine, bring me back up to the focus of Teela. So my composition is that golden triangle, just moving around like so. It's really important to make sure I keep remembering to do that, because there's nothing worse than building a composition that's very detailed, but it drifts your mind and your eyes straight off the page all the time. So having that action where it brings me back to the focal point is always in the back of my mind. And sometimes you can do that with color and texture too. It doesn't always have to be an object. It might be a drift of smoke, or it might be a shadow or a highlight on a figure, or even a background like a tree trunk or something. So it's good to have that to move you around a bit and keep that in your mind. All right, so some paint there a bit dry. And the key to getting the blend happening with your colors is to not go too far with one color. You kind of dance between the two. So I get my blue again, and I work back into the black, so I don't end up with something that looks too heavy, because the black dominates. So it allows me to get a nice blend happening. Like so. All right, so it's coming along all right. Okay. We're going to put in a little bit of that lighter area first. I do want a bit of light sort of winking the edge of that handle at the back here, because it is an odd sort of design, but we're going to just like that. Yeah. Like so. And what I'll do is I'll just put a bit of shadow over that. As that light cascades down, I'm just going to create a shadow underneath it. And of course, this won't be the final layer for any of the steel work. I'll probably go in and give it some detailing, some wear and damage as we go. Chris, haven't seen the trailer for the Fantastic Four yet. But I just want to show you everything that's got. Oh, nice. How was that? Was it good? Nice. Yes, I only got to see it briefly myself, but I'll probably get another view later. But it was, from what I saw, it looked pretty good. The Fantastic Four trailer, and it's pretty. It sparked a bit more interest to me than the Red Hulk trailer, which is interesting. It looked all right to me. But I'm a sucker for period pieces. I love those when they set them in another time frame. So as you can see, I'm just leaving that corner there a little bit. Hit up some of that blue, like so. So welcome everyone if you're joining me here for the live stream. As you can see, we're sort of working on the Masters of the Universe stuff still. We're moving through some of that. Kenny will be joining me a little bit later, so that'll be great. And I'm using the opportunity to sort of do a bit of a mad catch-up because Kenny's kind of jumped ahead of me. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just sort of trail out there, wash that out with just a wet brush, just to fade out a bit. There we go. Yeah, yeah. It's always that the joy when you walk in a building, you think, "Oh, thank God, I can stay here for a bit." So either got the air conditioning going nicely, or the heating. So it's a bit of a pleasure, isn't it? Makes things a lot easier moving around a crowded show or a small show. All right, so just joining those up now. Kind of just, you can't see this obviously from your camera side, but every now and then I just kind of squint my eyes to make sure I'm tonally in the right space, because the squinting tends to knock away detail. So I kind of squint to see that I'm getting the right sort of tones and shadows and getting those dimensions where I want them to be. Well, obviously I've got to put a bit of highlight in there every now and then. I'm going to do that when I come through and do my detailing, my aging. All right, so let's get the flat end of that in. There's a little bit there behind the foot, and put a little bit there, and just around that shoe. So it's a long weekend in my country this weekend, so a lot of people are out doing things and relaxing and taking it easy, which is nice. I'm just going to quickly check my battle ram reference again. All right, so this top end was probably a little bit of a slope down, which is good. All right, so so I'm going to bring that down like that. A little bit more blue in there. All right, so that should be enough to just kind of let that little guy there just rest for a bit, because I don't want to overwork the paper, and it gives it time to settle for the next layer. So It doesn't really have to dry overnight or anything. Like, you can leave it till it just gets a little bit more soaked and hardened, and then you can sort of work it a bit better. If you overwork it, it cornflakes the paper, but also it makes it a bit muddy too. Yeah, that's right. It's interesting how you can knock away the distractions when you're doing those things. It's similar to how artists sometimes you see them do the head bobble where they tilt their head back and forward just to change perspectives. Um, yeah, very similar sort of thing. All right, I'm going to drop in a little bit of shadow just under here. I might just flip it around a bit just so I get the arc of my hand working for me rather than against me. I'm going to put in a bit of shadow under there. Might put a little bit darker there just to make it just jump out a bit more. So just to define that edge a little bit. Like so. Alright, so that's okay, so let's just have a look here. So I've got to, you can see I sort of sketched out a little bit of that funky dragon design that's there. I'm going to sort of just finish off the blue while I've got it on my palette as I move around it. So I'm just going to put that in here. I'm going to do this almost like a glowing red, I think, because I want it to look like the steel has heat, as you know, like warmed up, and she's been flying around in battle, and whatever for whatever reason she's crashed, you know, like taken a dive and she jumped off ready for the incoming warriors. Yeah. Yeah, I do a bit of both. Like I do paint on an easel if I'm doing something really large. If I'm working on something like I am now, it works better for me to move the picture around. But if I'm on an easel and I need to do detail, I'll just lay it flat. Like you saw that oil painting I was doing, and I just have my timber I lay across it, or the, as my students call it, the plate and innovation technology. Just a bit of wood on two bits of corkboard, and it just allows me to lean over the picture. Just helps me to get more detail and get those arcs. But yeah, it's tricky. I've seen artists use those long sticks with the sponge on the end of it to lean on. I can't do that because I end up slipping because I'm a bit clumsy. But I guess you just find your own way, don't you, through those things? But yeah. So now I'll get a bit of that lighter colour. And we'll throw in, pretty sure it's got a, yeah, it's got a funny little parapet there where they rest their legs on. Get that angle in. Again, we'll just wash it in so it's got a nice sort of layer there that we can work on top of in a minute when it's dried out. Just trying to make it as even as I can. Like so. Alrighty. All right, so you can start to see a little bit of the battle ram come together a little bit now. We might throw a little bit of that turbine in. You have to excuse my pausing constantly because as my gouache is going, it's drying out, so I'm constantly mixing up my gouache. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of that blue just on the edge here. Gives us a starting point, and then we'll start to glow in that steel. There's some nice glowy effects. So if you're joining us for the first time or you haven't done so yet, please jump onto Kenny Calderone's Wild Ink Studios YouTube, or the Art of Will Playdon, and please subscribe and watch some of our content if you wish, but it certainly helps us to continue doing what we're doing. Even sharing it around is always helpful, because there are sometimes I can never get my head around these algorithms with things. You don't know what gets viewed and what doesn't. There we go. So I might do that as far as I do there, and then I'll start to get a bit of warmth happening in there. Alright, so a bit of red gouache. Orange. Okay. Okay, righto, so sorry, I'm just having to think about this because we are doing this live. We're working it out as we go. There's nothing pre-planned or pre-recorded. So let's give it that orange, and we'll put a little bit of that in the hottest part, which I imagine would be just in the center here, near where the turbines are. Let's give it a bit of glow. So I'm going to put in my orange first, and then I'll decide, once I've got my orange and my reds in, then I'll decide how far up I need to go with my blue-grey. So Chris, talk me through your process when you start your pencil drawing. Do you sketch out something loosely on another bit of paper before you begin your final drawing, or do you just jump straight in? Doing the Jack Kirby, just going straight in. All right, so there we go. So I get a bit of that red. And we'll blend it in with just on the edge of the orange. And of course, I'm probably going to have to go in with a bit of orange again and smooth it out. here as well. I'm just kind of just noodling around the edge of that red just to blend it softly into the orange. Probably going to get in a little bit of white and yellow in a minute just to highlight some of that area to make it look like really hot steel. Just kind of feel myself around the mechanics of this thing. All right, there. And that. So I've got a bit of orange on my brush. I can work back into the red. So this helps to blend it out a little bit. Okay, now for a little bit of yellow. So just putting a little bit of highlights in there. I don't add straight white to my orange because it tends to make it like a creamy flesh color. So we want to just add yellow in before we put our white in. And that gives us something to react to, right? So it moves into the yellow spectrum color rather than tinting down my orange or up my orange. Oh, so I lost you for a minute, Chris. Usually I work from a photo or I compose a photo with possible figures. The Harry Potter painting are different promotion of photos in the general drawing. Yeah, nice. So do you do a concept drawing to start with, or do you dive straight into the final thing? I'm always curious about people's processes with things like that because, yeah, it just interests me. I tend to try and do a little sketch to start with. So I do all my sort of figuring out before I jump in, especially with something large, because for me, I don't like dealing with damage I might do on the paper, which sometimes happens if I have to rub things out, and I like the scarring effect. So that's a little bit of red and the black. Gives me more of a darker colour. Mine's getting some of those tones in there like that. So, yeah, I think we all have that problem, Chris, having the grand plan. It's finding that happy balance between what's in the head and what you can be satisfied with in reality, isn't it? But I think most artists, when they finally get into the canvas, are like, I'm semi-satisfied. All right, so let's give it a white. Some of this I think I'll have to do a pass over when it's just dried out a bit, because I don't want to be thickening up too much of the paint here, but I do want to give it a bit of bright. So look here. And some of that will be reflected in the steam and smoke coming out, where it'll be reflecting the heat through the smoke. All right, so now we can start bringing that steel up to meet the orange. So I'm just going to quickly mix up my color again, because while painting the orange, my blue has gone a bit dormant. There we go. Gives you a nice sort of purple. There's the blue hits the red. And as I do my aging on this metal, when I do my pass over, when it's dry, I'm going to darken it down so it's like smoky, like an old exhaust on a car, you know, that kind of look. You've been behind a car and it's had oil problems in the past, and it's all, the lights are all smoked up and oily, and that's the kind of effect I want to have. Lived in universe. And a bit of that side there. I don't know. You can see it's a bit of a dance going back and forward from the tones. Okay, so let's so we're at with that now. Okay, while that orange and red is settling down, I can start to now move into detailing a little bit of the metal here, aged up, put down a final coat of light. Let's see, Chris. My Azrael painting started from converting a Bowen Designs Moonlight statue into Azrael. The finished photo turned out so perfect, I decided to do a painting of it. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, you can't unsee it, can you? Right. That's funny. Yeah, often when I finish a painting or a drawing and I put it up, you can't unsee the areas you journeyed through, the mistakes, the hiccups, the successes. But it's all there. It's all on display all the time. I guess the trick is getting to a point where your successes in the painting outweigh the problems you've had, if that makes sense. So you can live with it a bit better. And people see more of that rather than a latter, you know. Because I don't think that ever really goes away if you're a progressive artist. I think it's just something you learn to find a different ratio of the finished work, and hopefully it's one where you see more success in the picture. Now you can see this layer I'm putting in now is biting down real nice. It's not sort of streaking, and it's not pushing against me too much. I'm just got to be careful of that red and orange, that I don't touch it while it's settling. I'm just going to move along Teela there. I'm going to lose her ankle. Yeah, I'm not sort of going too smooth. I don't want it to look like she's got out of the showroom floor with this battle ram. I want it to look like it's had a little bit of patchwork here and there over time. So I'm using a bit of a flat chisel brush to sort of move a bit more freely through it, being a bit more liberal in my paint application. Gives me a bit more of a free-flowing effect on the paint job anyway. Spin it up there. Alrighty. Let's get it in there like that. I'm just going to try and clean up that edge there a little bit, so that when I do my final pass to do a bit of damage, it's got something to work on there. So I can chip in, I can make some sharp sort of edges, like things that hit the edge of the ram. And that's how I think as I'm going. I'm constantly thinking, oh, well, that will affect that, and that will affect this. I'll plan for this, and that's how you put down those underpainting areas. But you can see that's giving us a nicer effect now, that next layer on top of the streaky gouache. It's giving us a much smoother effect. I'll probably have to put a bit of shadow in there for Teela at some point too. Okay, in here. That's it. So, Chris Borman, I just realised this morning as I was sitting down having the morning coffee that we are getting pretty close to the 50th anniversary of A New Hope, Star Wars. I'm thinking of starting a large piece to celebrate that, a large painting. Have you thought about doing a similar thing? Been a bit of a Star Wars fan yourself? Something large to commemorate that. That'd be a great seller, I reckon, at conventions. Just feels like yesterday we did the 40th anniversary. It's gone so quickly. Just sort of edging in and keeping that nice edge sharp for the battle ram. I'm just using the edge of the chisel to move up against that. And I'm using the thickness of the gouache to almost, dare I say, sculpt in the edge there. Now, I might do the top of that a little bit so we get a consistent colour. So let's get it on right there. Right, so I might darken down just under there a little bit, just to give a little bit more weight. Especially now it's dried, it'll take this nicely. Just learning how far you can push this medium a little bit in terms of the paper and the paint, because you certainly don't want to overwork it, but there's also the danger of underworking it too. I've seen lots of that in my time and been guilty of it myself when I started out, is thinking you've finished a painting and you're quite a while away from finishing it. Oh, nice. Yeah, big loss for Greg Hildebrand going. Yeah, so we're nearly at 50. So 1977. So that gives you a nice 2 years to knock something as a major workout, which gives you a nice bit of time. And if you're like me with a million distractions on the plate, it's probably just about the right amount of time. Like the horror piece I've been working on, I feel like it started off as something that I was doing in between jobs. It ended up becoming this ongoing little project I've been working on slowly. So let's get that edge right there. So all right. Just trying to get that in there. Okay. All right, so let's see what there. Might throw a little bit of shadow under Teela here, and just reminding myself my light source is coming down this way. You can see a bit of sunlight. And I might try and block that actually, so we can see what we're doing. There we are. So yeah, nice. Love that. Love good X-Wing. Right, so it's going to pop in this shadow now to Teela. And we're going to kind of... So now we'll probably have to put it in here. And just blend out the little penumbra area there and the reflected lights. Lighten it up a bit. All right. Look, Chris, now you talk my language. My favourite beast is the Tauntaun. It's something special about that Empire Strikes Back, isn't it? All right, so now a bit of noodling. You know me, this is my favourite bit. As I go along and start to Put in some highlights, some damage. Give a little bit of wear and tear. And a bit of gloss here and there too. That's always pleasing. So, kind of want to make sure I accentuate those corners a little bit too. Just really get a little bit of shine, just to bring it, jut them forward a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, so. Alright, just a bit of analysing here. Let's do a little bit more down here, just to jut forward that. You don't want to overdo it either. You don't want to look like a 90s comic shop where they first discovered radial blurs and things like that in Photoshop. I have to give it just sparingly here and there. Just a hint at some of those edges coming forward. I don't love the 90s comic books. I love it. But I'm a bit old school when it comes to colouring. I love the old comic colouring styles on the newsprint. I love it. Something very nostalgic about that. Let's put a little bit of glue in there. Just edge that in a bit. And a bit on the end. Yeah, I agree. It's yeah, I mean, initially when I saw the original one in the cinema when I was a kid, 1977, New Hope, the creatures fascinated me almost as much as the space battles did. Like, you know, we always loved that kind of action when we were little boys, but just the cantina scene and the that Tatooine era really just fascinated me as a little kid. And my first action figure was the little hammerhead. So it's the weird Pondabubbas, the hammerheads, the Jawas, all those weird little dudes. But the Tauntaun, when Empire came out, I got the Tauntaun. And yeah, there's something special about that. It's surprising they haven't really revisited Hoth again very much in the Star Wars movies, but who knows? Who knows? So I'm just going to same here, get a bit of highlights just near to the seat here. Alright, so now I'm going to put a bit of texture on that vinyl seat there. Again, if you're joining us here for the first time, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Kenny and I. Kenny will be joining very soon. And we are working through our Masters of the Universe drawing challenge, and which will be one of a couple of our challenges that we're doing this year. And as Chris said, I'll probably finish it all in the when I turn 60. All right, so I'm going to attempt to put in a little bit of that smokiness in here, just to darken this down a bit because it's a bit too blue. I want to give it a little bit more sort of texture and sort of smokiness. Already that's toned it down nicely. So I'm just mixing a bit of Prussian blue in with that black, that ivory black. And it'll just give us a little bit more. I don't want to lose the edge for that. Got to be careful here. I don't want to lose the edge for that front panel. So I'm just getting a smaller brush to, sorry this is covering the screen a bit, but just to help to find that edge for myself. Here we are. Helps to push it back a little bit too, doesn't it? You know, moving it, tinting it back, and muting the tones always helps. You might put a little bit of a glow inside there at some point. I'm sort of making up the tech a little bit around this RAM because I don't have a lot of references for what happens inside the machine here, but I don't think there's anything wrong with sort of playing around that area. Alright, just a bit of that in there. Darken those brackets up a little bit. Right. Alright, let's go with that large brush and we'll do that outer panel with the light blue. As you can see, we're slowly building those tones up. And this is what I love about gouache, is it gives such a thick finished effect on things. So it's satisfying. Coming from oil painting and acrylic painting, I never really jived with watercolors too much, but I love the viscosity of some of this thicker paint. Not that it doesn't have its value. I love seeing a good watercolor, but it's just never been my thing. All right, so move that down to there. Like so. Right. And it's got a water on my brush now, just cleaning out some of these edges a bit, just slightly. Okay. All right, so we'll do a bit of that texture now, the vinyl texture. So I think I've got a really small brush and we'll start to, because I've got a dark undertone in there, I should be able to go over the top of it with a nice highlight. So we'll do a lighter blue and a really, really light blue, just to get the two variances. Let's make sure I got my point on the brush. Okay. I'm just starting to highlight right here. And I'm not going to be insane and go through and do every tiny little vinyl dot. Just enough to get the sensation that it's textured. That's all I want to do. Because I want to be able to keep the focus on Teela too, and making sure that we eventually get to that armor. We've got to get her done today. So it's a bit of an economy of time on this one. So we're going to fly through and get some of these effects done. Like so. Mm. See, I told you it's not me, Chris. Look, I'm as guilty as Kenny, but also I get very distracted watching. Like sometimes I want to see how he does something, and I get caught because his method is he does such great work, especially with his ink work, like very expert, and I just get distracted at watching great art happening. So I'm to blame on that one as well. But in terms of my productivity, but yeah, in terms of the topics, it's much easier to see when I don't have tears in my eyes from laughing. Put it that way. But like I said too, like once you get the main face done, the rest flies. I'm doing a set of Star Wars cards for tops at the moment, and I've been sort of focusing on doing the generals, the Imperial generals. So it's tricky. But once you get like a Grand Moff Tarkin's face correct, or Peter Cushing, the rest you fly through. You know, you're just working on textures for outfits and with funny little emblems, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, it is indeed, or as Kenny would say, indeed. But we are all seen as the great um, appropriators, aren't we? Really, which is, I suppose, a lot of what we do in our show here. It's about the democratization of knowledge. It's about making it available for everyone. It's what we do in classrooms as well. We don't hold back on sharing with people because it's only real ego that stops that from really occurring in the wild anyway. And what I love working about with Kenny is that he leaves that at the door, which is fantastic. All right, so just going to drop a bit of shadow around the place now because I don't want it to look as abrupt as it does with that vinyl. So I've just got a bit of a darker blue, and I'm just going to work in just on the edge here and there just to soften the gradation a bit from light to dark. Almost like the vinyl seats of old cars, you know, they kind of tuck in with little grooves. I don't know if it's like that in the States, but I used to have an old car with vinyl seats, and after that hot summer day, whew, they were hard to sit on. All right, so let me soften it just a little bit. And my white's starting to cure, so it allows me to blend over the top just a little bit, just to soften that, turn a bit there. Yeah, right. Yep, absolutely. And I think being in the presence of the art too always plays a massive role. You know, like you tend to get a way different um, energy exchange from it. You know, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I know when I've been in front of someone like Adam Hughes drawing, and I'll sit and I can see him processing through it. You know, it's a way different experience. And let's take a little bit of care here as I move around this seat. And I know it seems like a fairly, uh, you know, mundane thing to take care with, but with my artwork, I tend to try and make sure that, you know, I spend as much time with the things that aren't interesting as the things that are interesting. You know, you don't want anything. I don't want anything to sort of take you out of the experience of the piece. by having something that looks like it's sloppy. All right, there we go. A bit of vinyl flex happening there. I might just soften the curves on the other side there, just so we can leave and move on with a bit of safety there. So I'm just going to soften the transition curves here. I don't want the line to be too dark. Soften that up a bit. You know what I mean? There we go. All right. Oh, we're getting there. All right, let's mix up a bit of damage action. Love doing this. Is the fun bit. So we'll go a bit crazy. And I'm just going to mix up a bit of dark blue. And get my fine brush out again. And just going to go through and do a bit of smash and damage here and there. Big bit going across there. And yes, I have to, Chris, I have to do the sound effects. That's part of my brain. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. You're lucky to get one of those sketches. I was pretty fortunate at the convention I went to. He was doing a live drawing in front of a little crowd, a little group. One of those little panels. And I was able to see his wife Amanda do a Harry Potter trading card in Copics. And then he did a Catwoman in Copic markers, with the traditional model that he uses of Audrey Hepburn. But yeah, it was pretty great to just sit there and watch him draw. It's worth the trip in itself, All right, so after I initially throw that damage down like that slash, I think a little bit of darkness and just move up next to the slash, leaving a little bit of a highlight. And that helps to create the idea that the steel has buckled. So it sort of pops forward a little bit. Now, I'll probably do a final pass over that when I've done all of my damage. And just do a little bit of highlight here and there where maybe the steel is just winking at us on the edges, like it's a bit sharp. So I'm going to get, oh, geez, it's drying up already. Get some more of that dark tone. We'll do some more damage because a bit of dents here and there. Widen that up a little bit. Get a bit more girth there. I always love doing this. I love doing a little bit of damage that overlaps an edge. So I'll go, we'll go this way this time. We'll go fine. Hit that corner. Like they've glanced off something. All right, so what I'll do then is I move back with my wider brush. I've got no paint or water on this. It's just probably a bit damp from when I used it before. And we just blend out some of the edges there. And that just helps to create, rather than a sharp dot, it creates a bit of a dent. While that paint's on my brush, I'll just move up a bit. And again, create my little edge. Yeah, it's a bit dry now. It's a bit more paint. Just like that. Clean my brush off, and then I can just move that around liberally however I want. Like so. And it just reactivates that gouache around it. It just helps to push those cuts forward. I'll just do the same here, move that around here, smear out some of those dents. Might keep that hole there fairly strong. And in fact, I might do another one, almost like it looks like something's hit it and made a hole in it. It's fun to do a bit of battle damage. It's kind of where you play, All right, so let's Let's get a bit of highlights on that battle damage. A bit more white paint. All right, so I'm using straight titanium white now. I'm just going to, first I'll just touch it to see how much paint's on my brush, just in a safe area before I start committing. This area here and there, just do a little bit of highlights. It just helps to push that shadow in a little bit, especially on those sharp cuts. So just trying to blend it out a little bit. Yeah, talking about distracted artists, Adam Hughes is great at that. I don't feel alone when I see Adam working because he gets very caught in conversation. But produces amazing work. I just wish I could see more of it. Right. I feel like that white line's a bit too much, so I'm just going to soften it a bit. Knock it back just a little bit. There we are. I might do the same with this. So I've just got water on my brush now. Well, my brush is just damp, not too much water. I don't want to end up with pools of white. I'm just using that to soften the gleam down a little bit. Just the edges of it so it blends out a bit. Okay. So a little bit of dry brush now. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of dark blue, dry it off on the on my little towel here. Just put in a little bit of scuffing here and there. Make sure you're always working your shadows because you should be able to see things in your shadows so it doesn't look like a black blob. You should see form within your shadow. It helps to make the illusion convincing. There we are. So hopefully that's mottled it down a bit. Create that nice sort of damage effect. Might do a bit on the wing down the corner there. Alright, so I might start with the mottling since I've got it on my brush. And you can see I'm sort of flipping from side to side, so nothing looks too consistent. I want to make sure that it looks like it's a unplanned thing that's happened. All right, now a bit of damage. Just a little bit. We don't want to overdo it. So just a little bit here and there. Maybe a chink out of the wing here. And then we'll give it a bit of highlight touch-ups, just like we did on the main body. Just a little bit on the wing there, and just a little bit on the edge of the cut steel. There, I think. Oh yeah, yeah. It's always interesting copying markers. It's something that I was saying to my wife that I'd love to spend a bit of time figuring out how to do that and layer it with pencil and things like that. It's Copics have always been a little bit of a wonderment and a mystery to me. But yeah, watching him work in his warm greys and blacks has always been amazing. Yeah, I suppose you'd see all of the early layers he did come through. Okay, so now let's actually we might actually bring that just a little bit forward. Oops. reactivate a bit of that. Move it down. So while that's drying down there, because that'll be all ground and rubble down the bottom. And then we can start to move up and put the sticker detail on. All right, so thank you for joining us today. If you are just joining us here on the stream, and Kenny and I have been working through the Masters of the Universe characters, and today we are doing Teela. So trying to finish off Teela's design today before Kenny jumps on and finish this here. So been working mainly on the battle ram. So you can see I've done mainly part of her form, or the anatomy. A little bit of armor work and swords and shield action. But a lot of the main areas are done now. And now with the battle ram, it starts to weight her in the area a little bit more. So if you're joining me for the first time, please jump on and give us a hello. Do some comments, like and subscribe and share. That always helps us in the big picture of everything. All right, so now that that's dry, that shadow, I'm going to put a little bit of darkness just under the shoe, just to give her a little bit more weight there. Like so. And I found with gouache, it really is that dance between that layer to that layer to that layer, pushing, the pulling, the losing, the finding, and then eventually you hopefully get to the point where you've found the piece. But hopefully we'll get to the end and think, oh, yep, that's Teela standing on a fallen battle ram. A little bit of shadow there on her shoe. I know we're working on Teela instead of sticker, like I said, but I got distracted. Okay, so now the sticker. Now I'm just going to have to quickly look on a bit of reference here because I need to see what the sticker's doing. Okay. All right, so the original one's not very clear, is it? Let's see if I can find something. I'll be a bit of a case of us making it up here. Oh, there we go. Look at that one. All right, so a little bit of a dragon shape, a bit of lime green is happening. Okay, so we might put in the eye of the dragon first. Let's see. Sorry, Chris, I'm talking to myself. Okay, so as I move around here like that, put my orange in first. And I'm going to drop in a bit of cool lemon yellow in the middle there. I don't want it to look too overly realistic because we are dealing with a almost like a decal, I guess. Put in a bit of that. All right, give it that nice scarlet red, a bit of vermilion, and we'll just pop that in there like that. And it's going to look fairly flat compared to all the other tone work we've done, which is okay. When it dries, we might throw a bit of smokiness over the top like we did the main body there, just to give it a little bit of scuffing. Yeah. Well, I reckon, isn't that the first sign of badness, is when you're talking to yourself or asking yourself questions? And the second sign is when you answer them, which I'm guilty of all of them, I guess. Right, so that'll do for that. And we're going to throw some of that green in. So a bit of green. There we go. Okay. Let's see. I'll use a wider brush this time. Now again, I've just got a bit of cool green or a light green. I'm mixing it into my cool yellow that creates that kind of limey colour. And we're just going to start on the brow of this creature as we move over. So. It's a bit like colouring in this part because it's kind of just like you're doing flat decal work. And as that sort of moves forward, it's going to go into the ground anyway, so I'm not sort of too stressed about that bit there. So you put your light green in first and then move in with your pure green over the top, and that helps to create that a little bit of tonal difference, even though we don't want too much. Let's see, so it's got this funny shape here. Again, I'm just doing the light green to start with, the limey green. That comes down to here. Just going to flatten that area now. I've left a couple of spots there because I want to put the little highlights that they've put on there on the drawing. And it might be something where I may work over some pencil just to flatten it out a bit more. Good thing about gouache is it takes to pencil very nicely. If you are using good pencils and if you are painting reasonably flat, you can work over it nicely. All right, now we'll hit it up with a bit more green. See how that reacts nicely to the lime underneath it. The green on itself is a very transparent colour. It doesn't like being on its own. So as soon as I hit it with a bit of cool yellow and a little bit of titanium white, that thickness really starts to pay off. So that's such a funky sticker design. It's like they got a space out to fill, and the artist designed a little figure to fit in it. It's interesting. Bringing your battle ram into the attorney and custom decal design company to design your own customized sticker. So that's going to come out now like that. Just a little straight lemon just to get in there. So green comes right up to the back. So, and a bit of that wing down there like so. I think I'm just going to do a pass over this, I think, with a darker green and highlight some of these little fins and things that are in the sticker design. Definitely. That tucks in under there. And weirdly enough, it turns into orange again. Righto. That goes up like that. Now I'm going to shift gears into a smaller brush. Yes. The kitty does the meh way better than I do. Okay, so it's I've just got a bit of darker green on my brush now. And this weather, it's the paint's curing so quickly. Sometimes it's dry before, from mixing the color to deciding where to put it. Curve in there like that. And then we have some weird fins happening here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So alrighty, so move that around there like that. Yeah, it is, Chris. It's the heat of summer. This is probably January for us is where the heat really kicks in. It's you're looking at 35, 40 degrees Celsius days in this week or so of summer. So it can get a little bit tricky. So I'm jumping between aircon on, aircon off, trying to keep everything not from overheating in the studio here. All right, so All right, so I'm just going to bring that around here just quickly. I know I'm noodling a bit on this, but it's a weird design. I'm just trying to make sure I get it reasonably looking the same. I'm not too stressed because honestly, there's a few variations, so we're just going to do the best we can. We should have Mr. Calderon on here pretty soon. Okay. So it's straight yellow now. Let's clean up a little bit of that pencil work that I forgot about. We don't want that sealed in by the yellow. All right, it's got a little fin there, a bit of the fins, and another one. And that should join up to the head for the weird crocodile dragon creature. I'm kind of liberally painting this in now because I'm going to go and hit this up with a bit of paint and pencil once it's all settled in a bit. So I'm not overly stressed about the line work. And then underneath that is the bright orange again. We're red on the top here. Alrighty, I should leave. We might leave that for a minute, just that little bit there, and then we'll actually there's a little bit of yellow mist, a little blob in the middle, which is weird. We're just going to leave that there to set and dry, and we'll come back to that in a second. All right, so the battle ram is nearly just about completed. Yeah, I think he is. All the ham sandwiches. We're just going to go around now and probably just clean up the edge of that stick with a bit more of that ram colour. And when that's dry, we will smoke that up a little bit and damage it up because it is in the ground. We've got the ground dirt to put in there. It's not going to do a great deal of detail. I do want a bit of sort of damaged ground, like it's ploughed through the dirt, and we'll have some like sticks and trees and stuff in the background. And then we're going to do the smoke coming out, which I think all of that will take us about, this is a crazy rough estimate, probably about 15 minutes, I reckon, to get this done if we get cracking on it now. So we're going to mix up a little bit of that blue to get our battle ram blue again. Trusty tracing paper over the top. And we're just going to paint in up to the edge of that sticker. And the reason I'm doing the blue now is that I didn't want the yellow to get too close to it and freak out and start to become an ugly green. There we are. Right, that sort of cleaned it up nicely. Now we just let that settle, and then we'll come in and detail it with a bit of pencil work, I think, just on that sticker. All right, so let's get a bit of smoke action going, I reckon, because while that smoke's drying, we'll do the ground, and then we'll flip the switch and do the rest of Teela's armour. So we're going to get a little bit of just off colour, the bits that are sort of hanging on the edge of my palette. A little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of brown, a little bit of blue to create our smoke colour. And of course, when I get close to where the hot engine is, we might put a little bit of glowing orange in there as well. So I'm going to move back from the smoke, back from the engine to start with. And we're going to start just hammering my paintbrush on the side. And it just gives me, I don't know if you can see it, I've kind of outlined it very lightly where I'm going anyway. So I've blazed a bit of a trail there. But I'm just going to put a little bit of that paint down liberally and then water it back. Right, so when I water it this time, I'm going to throw a little bit of white on my water, and that goes straight in. But again, I've got to be real careful that I don't at this stage ruin the paper, because that's upsetting. All right, so just adding a bit of, as the pigments wear off my brush, it's pretty much just damp, and I am just pushing that out, giving it some nice light smoky effects. You can see as I'm applying, I'm going in and out. I'm moving in and out a bit just to give that soft, cloudy smoke effect. Let's bring it up to Teela's thigh there. I don't want to interrupt that colour tone too much. All right. I'll load up my brush again. Now I know what the colours do. I can load up my brush and work in there with a bit more confidence, because I know exactly what the colour has done and the level of tone, because I've already done it. So I can move in with a bit of confidence that this is the effect I'm going to get. Now, as I move out a bit, of course, it's going to start getting lighter. So a little bit more white to my colour, maybe a little bit more blue. I want it to tint out a bit. And we're just going to fade it off. So I'm just going to be very careful on the edge of her leg here, that I don't get any paint on her. All right. And I want to just fade that off in the distance. So once I put that paint down, I'm going to get some water while it's still reasonably wet, and I can start to fade it out. Just give it some little nice billows. come down closer now. I'm going to get that same smoke colour and a little bit of that orange to it. Maybe a touch of red. Just to mix it up and give that little bit of warmth in the clouds there. I haven't shown it yet, but there's actually an inner tube, like an exhaust on the inside there. I'm going to do that in a second, once I get this down. And if you recall, with each of our Masters of the Universe pieces, we are keeping our backgrounds as much as we can a little bit minimal, so that the focus is on the figure. All right. I'm just squinting my eyes again to make sure that that glowing effect is working. Okay, probably not blended out as much as I want it to be, but I think it's okay. All right, so I'm going to do that inner tube now. All right, I'm just going to change to a smaller brush because that one's a little bit heavy. All right, so I'm just going to blend that out now a little bit, and we might just put a little bit of red on the edge of the steel inner tube in the exhaust to give it that glowing heat. All right. Let's wash the brush, get a bit of red on our brush now. And that should be able to blend in nicely. So I'm just going to hit the edge of that black and then move towards the edge there. That'll just give it a nice little bit extra warmth there, opening on the edge of that exhaust. Like so. All right, I reckon that's enough for that. We might be able to leave it alone. We need to clean it up later. We can hit it up with a bit of black pencil or something just to clean it. Now, while that's all drying up here, we're going to go down and start to put in the ground area. You can see now with the darkness of that cloud, the smoke and the inner exhaust, that the outer exhaust really feels like it's hot now. One thing we are missing, which I completely forgot till I just saw that, is the other side of the exhaust. That should be snaking around the corner there like that and drifting into the shadows. That happens when you're making things up as you're going. Making my own tech up. All right, there you go. Okay, a bit of ground action. So we're going to use a bit of burnt umber, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna in with the ground, just to give it some soil effects. So let me just get a little bit of that. Okay, so I'm just adding the brown together. I always add a little bit of blue in it, a bit of Prussian blue, and I know that's what we call Coppertown brown, Kendy's favourite colour, but it just tends to give me a bit of a warmer brown, because the brown on its own can sometimes just look a little bit less convincing, a little bit more caramelly colour. I tend to like the blue in it, just gives it a bit more depth. There's a bit of rubble and edges and rocks and things like that, so it's like it's ploughed into the ground. That sticker is dry enough now that I can work over the top comfortably. I've got to say, I've loved doing these He-Man figures. It's almost like you get to play with your action figures again. So I'm just going to do a bit of rubble there. And again, I'm using my wider chisel brush so I can sort of give some nice painterly effects back and forward. But again, compositionally, I want to keep pushing up. So whatever I do as the trail coming up, it's got to move back to Teela again and keep the focus on the center part of the figure. Put a bit of dirt on the wing there. I think that's important. That doesn't look totally unconvincing. I think the soil's starting to work all right on there. The sticker's probably the most glaring thing on the picture, but we might tone that down a bit yet. What do you reckon, Chris? Do you think that needs to be knocked back a bit? I think it does. I'll just get a little bit of fleckle effect. So I'm just going to go straight down with my brush on the paint and just go in here and there, give it a little bit more grit. I don't like, at this stage of the game, flicking my brush because I end up getting it where I don't want it to be. So I tend to just work straight down with the bristles. Like so. Just so it doesn't look like he's landed in a big pile of chocolate mousse. Gives a little bit of grit there as well. Now, what we might do is we might do a little bit of larger sort of slabbed rocks. So it feels like we're not just dealing with someone's turned over the soil in their garden. We're actually dealing with somewhere natural. So as we move through and put this dark in, we're going to create some little sort of slabby rock, crepe, slate sort of areas. These become the fun part of the drawing because you can sort of sit there and noodle away at rocks and damage and concrete, and you're not sort of caught in the battle of trying to get anatomy correct. You get a bit of fun with the painting. Again, a little bit of blue in there, so to tone it down a bit. All right, I'm just going to muddy up this green a little bit, I think. Give it brown dirt effects on it. And the orange as well. It's just looking a bit too clean, you know what I mean? Okay, so that's tinted it down a nice amount. I don't want to go too much because it ends up turning to mud. And we can start to travel with that brown into the paintwork of the steel a bit. It does two things. It dirts it down, but also helps to build that local colour so it's not too jarring. All right, so let's do a little bit behind now. So a bit behind the battering ram. Battering ram, I don't know. I'm just going to wash in a little bit. I don't want too much detail here. Oh yeah, you got to dirty it up. You don't want to look like it's walked out of a showroom floor. Okay, let's get a little bit of rockery there. I'm just using a darker tone now to go in and work over that little wash to give it a little bit of texture and to make it feel like it's kind of got that rocks. Like this kind of plowed through the dirt and ended up topside, nose down, almost like you've hit the gutter on your bike a bit too heavy, you know, and you sort of tip up backwards. I'm just working in that larger chisel, liberally sort of painting back and forward. I don't want to get caught in too much detailing at this stage, just on this part. I want to make sure it feels a bit looser, which is exactly what we want. A little bit of that blue in the distance to just give it a bit of just changes the tone and makes it feel like it goes further back. It knocks back when you've got cool next to the warm. All right, so now we've got that happening. I'm just going to put a little bit of dark right behind our little ram here, just to push that dirt forward at the front of it, but also to make it feel there's a bit of distance behind it. Okay. All right. Okay, we're getting there slowly coming together. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of slabbing rocks where Teela's standing, just to give her a little bit of grounding. And then we should be able to ride to washing. A little bit of a slight overcast sky, just a washy one. I don't want any sort of more detail than that. Then we're going to jump straight into detailing Teela. There's some nice sort of strong burnt sienna there, mixed in with a bit of yellow ochre and raw sienna, just to give us some nice sort of rocky edges. Just wash it out there, kind of fade it out a bit. And then around there like that. You might notice I'm just treating this very carefully that I don't get too detailed and big at the bottom, because you could just keep going with landscape parts. You can just keep going forever. I just want to make sure that it fades out appropriately. Just like that. All right. We'll put in a little bit of a shadow for Teela. So we'll put in a bit of Prussian blue and a brown again. And we can start to bring that shadow area up from that boot inwards. Okay. All right, so that's looking reasonably effective. I think we'll probably build a little bit more soil just up here in a minute as that sort of ground is bulging out where it's channeled through the dirt. And we'll put in a little bit of sky and some trees that have been pushed aside, but I think we're done with the background. So let me just get a little bit of that blue. We'll do an overcast sky. Just pummeling through the paint box at the moment. Here we go. The cerulean. So a big thank you for joining us for our back to the drawing board session today. Really appreciate it. I know we say it a lot, but we really do. And Kenny will be joining us soon, hopefully. And I've been saying that for a bit, but I think hopefully. And each week we've been doing these drawings as we move through the Masters Universe characters one at a time. And today we're doing Teela. So if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We love having you here. And I'm just working to sort of catch up with Kenny. So it's been a good opportunity today to get some of this in. So I've just got a bit of cerulean blue in with a bit of white and a touch of black to sort of knock it back a bit. And I'm just throwing in that blue as a little bit of a background to fill in some of these gaps. Normally I would do the blue before I do anything else, but sometimes we're making this up as we go, folks, so sometimes you make decisions as you're on the fly. All right, and as we go down, we're going to add a little bit more white to our blue. Like so. There's a bit of a tight area down here, but we're getting close enough to her boot and the ground. I'm not too worried. I can clean it up with a bit of white as we move it from the ground level up. And then I can blend some of that smoke just off into the sky just slightly too once the blue's down. All right. Just put a little bit of that blue on the outside, and we can blend that off. Just going to use a bit of straight water on my brush, and I'll just kind of watercolor that out a bit. Again, being very careful not to cornflake my paper too much, especially at this late stage of the game. It's got a lot of paint on it. Okay, so that should be enough there. Now that water will look like it's on the screen, like it's a little bit dark grey, but it will dry clear. Now, let's see, we'll move that sky up just a little bit on the other side of the smoke, and we should be able to fade it out pretty quickly. Oops. Just like so. The traps here is to get too excited with your brush and start slapping paint in, and then you've lost your paper. You've overloaded your paper, and you get buckling, and then you end up with a mess. Okay, get in between that turbine there. Yeah, while I've got a bit of brush, I'm just going to move over that smoke and blend it out a bit. Just softens that edge a bit so it's not so dramatic. Watching her leg there doesn't mix in with the skin tone too much. Okay. I might just put a little bit of touch of blue on the right side of the leg and then we should be done with the sky. And then we should be able to just blend that out. Okay. Alrighty, so now see a little bit of horizon line, and then we should be done with our background. Thank God. I think we can just finish Teela off. Yeah, it does, doesn't it, Chris? It works against it and really pushes those highlights forward, which is a nice, satisfying feeling. Gives it that nice watercolory mini comic look too that I love. All right, so we're going to get a little bit of that blue again with the brown. We're going to use the same blue this time as we used in the sky. And we're going to put in just some little light mountain sort of scapes in the background. I know this is a bit Bob Rossy, but as we move along here, I'll show you what we're going to do. We'll put in the dark part of the mountainscapes first, which you can't sort of go too wrong with because you're making this landscape up yourself anyway. So you're in charge. Oh, it's going to fade it off there in the distance. Not too much happening. And then we get our white, and we can tend to hit the bottom of the landscape sort of white. And that tends to fade it out. And I guess the key is just to be inconsistent, even though you're sort of deliberate in where you're putting things. You want it to look fairly inconsistent. It's like it's a mountainscape. So it doesn't look like Simpsons Mountains or anything. You know, it's got inconsistencies, ups and downs, shadows and valleys and peaks, all that kind of stuff. Okay, now we've got that in. We can sort of define the last part of the rocks. Then we've got our twigs for trees that we're putting in, and then we're done. So we'll get in now. I've got a smaller brush now rather than that big one. I can sort of go along and define some of those edges that are rubble, which we kind of want now. We want it to feel like there's a peak to where the soil has come up, just like at the front here of the battering ram. Okay. We'll do the same on the other side here. So I'm just using a bit of burnt sienna with burnt umber straight and a touch of that Prussian blue just to tint it down a bit. And that gives us our soil colour. All right, so now I'm just using a clean brush to just mix in and scumble and scuffle that dirt up a bit. Put some little soil bits popping out here. Looks like it's exploded over the edge. And then I'm going to use some of that straight blue again in with the brown to just redefine her shadow, especially near that channel there. Clean my brush off, blend it out. Okay. All right. We're nearly there. We're just going to start on her armor, which is kind of more noodling and thinking again, which is, I'm kind of just enjoying doing the rocks and the, the landscape, to be honest. I'll just do some larger rocks at the bottom here. All right, that should do, I reckon. Okay, we'll put in a couple of smoky old trees that have been pushed aside as the battering rams comes through. I might put a little of, just a touch of misty green just here and there. So everything doesn't look too dead. It look like she's landed in Fallout. All right. I think that'll do for the background. Now we can start to move up to the figure again. We'll finish off this figure. All right. Now, let's have a look at Teela again. While I quickly grab a drink for my throat. So let's see her armor. So we're probably going to have to move around doing the gold now, and we'll work on her breastplate, collar, gauntlets, and then we'll do a shield last. Okay. All right, so we'll just move that in. Here we go. Just getting a clean bit of tracing paper so I'm not smearing paint everywhere. All right, so for this part, for the gold effects, I tend to use raw sienna mainly for her armor. I use the burnt umber for her shadows, and a bit of warm yellow and white for her highlights. Right. Let's get you some paint tubes. All right, so what I tend to do is just start to highlight where my terminator line is first on all these objects. So with the breastplate, I want to make sure that the peak of this breastplate here, where that armor curls around, that sort of snaking shape, that is where my terminator line is going to be, which means that this is my light area, and under here is my reflected light. So I'm just going to put in that on both sides. So I've got a similar sort of effect. Now what I'll do is I'll grab a little bit of, maybe a little bit of yellow with my burnt sienna. And I tend to see I'm kind of moving in little circles now, up right on the edge of that terminator line. Because I want the area at the bottom, the reflected light area, to be light. Almost like a bumper on a car. You know how like that lower area of the bumper is always kind of like reflecting off the steel, and then the steel's reflecting the ground. That's what I wanted for her chest plate there. We're going to do the same for both. And as we move up, we're going to do a bit more yellow in the raw sienna, and we're going to create a highlight area here. Because eventually on that armor it's going to go white because it'll be shiny to imitate gold. When you get that in, you can get a little bit of that burnt umber, and you just put a little bit of that in here and there just to make it pop. You don't want to go too much because it tends to modify everything. You want to make sure that your paint remains clean but also effective. A bit more of that burnt umber under there. Now I'm going to hit it over the top of a bit of that raw sienna, and that should hopefully tint it back to the gold area that I want it to be. Like so. Okay. Got to be real careful not to overwork it too much while it's wet. You can always go in and put a little bit more on top of it, and you can put in your highlights, but you don't certainly want to overwork it at the beginning. Otherwise you end up with mud everywhere. Okay, now let me just check my reference again super quick. Okay, so she's got a gold armband too. So same process, you put in your terminator line to start with, and you can always decide to whether you want to give her a lip to that steel. I always tend to do a nice little lip, because then it feels like the gold is actually formed to her arm, not just look like cloth. It's got actually some sort of edge to the metal. Again, I'm adhering to the same decisions that we've made throughout the piece for light source. So making sure that the light source is cascading down onto the body. Get that burnt umber in there, blend it in with the raw sienna. And the same rules. So we're going to put in a little bit of that yellow with the raw sienna for the shadow under here. You might notice I've got a little bit of blue in the tint of her skin to cool it off in the shadows. You can do that as well if you feel you want to push it that direction. I'll see how I feel in a minute if I want to add a bit more blue to it. I'm just dragging that little lip up there just like so. Now straight white on the brush, just to give her a little bit of highlight on her arm piece there. You can see just the white itself just gives it a bit of extra pop there. Same with the breast piece. All right. Okay, let's move that down a bit so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm sort of working under the camera a bit. I'm just going to just get that sienna just to lick that edge a little bit there, a little bit underneath. Just give it a bit of shadow work. Just to define that little highlight too. All right, so let's keep on moving. So we might do now her, while we've got the paint on our brush, we might just finish off her collar. Because she's got the same sort of colour collar, even though I don't think it's steel. That would be pretty uncomfortable to be wearing all the time. I'll turn your head and sort of slice your neck open. You don't want to keep that collar too harsh. So I imagine it was like a cloth. Okay. Okay, go on this side. Now we're going to drop a little bit of shadow on this one because we want that collar to curl in. Like that. Runaway brush. All right, it's going to that collar with a bit of lightness just there. And maybe a little bit of shadow just under that lightness. So it's going to go dark, light, dark. Okay. Collar done. Armband. Oh, I got another armband down there. I missed. This one will be a little bit more shadow based because it's facing the inside of the form. So we'll get the terminator liner closer to the edge. Sometimes you just going to, once you work out the your own sort of law to how things work and turn to make sense or give the illusion of depth, you can pretty much reapply that over and over. It just depends on, you know, what you're doing. So I can shift that same sensibilities to doing a sword or doing a shield or an armor or, you know, even like the form of the body. You just keep moving that terminator line up and down, back and forward, depending on where it is you want it to fall. Yeah. All right, she's slowly starting to come together now as we finish off certain areas. Now we're going to try and get some of this curling armor done around her, which is a little bit tricky, but we'll give it a shot. So that kind of comes around like this. It's almost like a coil of a snake, which makes sense when you got her cobra outfit. So we're just going to do the Terminator line with my larger brush, and then I'm going to come in with a smaller brush and do the little noodling details. Maybe it's going to be in shadow, so I might just do that all raw umber there, raw sienna, and then I'm going to do the Terminator line in this piece. He's trapped. Come on, Kenny, we need you. Must get to the door. All right. Kind of feel like that right breastplate here needs a little bit more shadow, a bit more darkening, because I feel like it's just too much highlight. You can't have too much highlight. Okay, so then that sort of joins in here, sort of sneaks down and creates that sort of gemstone-y area that she's got in the middle here of her armor. We need you here, Kenny, so we can announce our next project. Chris has been patiently waiting. All right, Teela, this is getting ridiculous. The amount of gemstones you got on your, your armor, it's just getting a bit much. All right, so while we're here with the raw sienna, we're also going to throw in the side of the chest plate here, just to get it down and in paint. And then we can go back and add in the highlights and shadows in a second, all in one sort of pass. I mean, you could do it section by section, but sometimes when you're under the deadlines, you've just got to do waves of things, so it becomes smarter use of your time. The economy of painting, you sort of do it in sections, like waves. You go, right, all my shadows, all my highlights, that kind of stuff. So yeah, heavy bedazzling for sure. Now that chest plate's now dried up nicely, so I can sort of move down here with a more of a darker tone now. And I can start to, yeah, exactly. I can start to put in some of my, redetermine my terminator line here. So it's got a little bit more strength to it. And so I put in a bit of burnt umber in there, bit of copper tone brown. Copyright Kenny Calderon 2024. And then I'll hit it up with a bit of that lemon and the raw sienna again, just to strengthen that tone. You can see already it's starting to give it a little bit more guts in the colour. Smudgy. Okay, so now I can scale down to the next size down brush. Just going to go through now and just put in some of these shadows, put in the highlights very quickly, move around here, put in again a pass of highlights and shadows, and then make a few decisions around those gemstones in the middle. And then we're just jumping straight to gauntlet, headpiece, sword, shield. So hopefully we should be nearly at the point where we are polishing off the last parts. Yes, we need strong breastplates, says Kenny Calderon. I agree. Okay, so this tells me that Kenny's probably secretly looking at his phone under the dinner table while no one's looking. I think that's what's happening. All right, so let's move around that shadow point there. A bit of darkness just on the other side of that white chest piece there, just to make it pop out a bit more. We were saying before, Kenny, I was asking Chris whether he'd seen the Fantastic Four trailer yet. Just wondering if you've seen it. Curious to see what your feedback is on that one. So I'm just noodling along, sort of putting those shadows in. It's about now in the piece that Kenny would have started the next one by now. And I'd be panicking trying to finish. Yeah, I thought the costumes looked pretty good. I was pretty impressed with that. Looked very traditional on the Fantastic Four. So, and like I said to Chris before, I'm a sucker for period pieces. So as soon as they put it in, that's just great. And that shot of the big bad at the end and a little bit of our Silver Surfer friend, I think that was really cool. Yeah, he'd be working his Monday one. All right. We can see that gold now is really starting to just come together, just slowly, bit by bit, the more we put our darks and shadows in. Yeah, agreed. It feels a bit directionless, doesn't it? But it's going to be hard to beat the new Superman one. For me, it looks pretty amazing, actually. I'm going to bit of that yellow now and a bit of white. And we're going to have a play with putting just a few highlights here and there. Just a bit there. Sort of winks that sort of tail as it moves around. I'll put a bit in there. Yeah, thanks, Kenny. You probably haven't seen the battle round. I was working on the battle round today, sort of getting that done. So the background's all finished now. So we just got a little bit of clean up with a bit of pencil over the top of the decal, but generally we've finished that part. And now we're just finishing off her armor. Waiting for the copper tone man to turn up. Just put a bit of those little separators in there. Again, I've kept a fairly limited palette, so I'm just moving between raw sienna, burnt umber, and burnt sienna. So I'm playing with those three and a touch of Prussian blue just to cool it down every now and then. But I'm just keeping my palette fairly limited so that we're getting the same gold effects throughout. So I'm not sort of introducing anything that's probably hasn't already been used. Yeah, a little bit, yeah. A little bit of Frazetta-ish. Probably both the He-Man piece and her were probably the most Frazetta inspired. I think probably the colours have a lot to do with it too, and the costume. And those guys that did it were very Frazetta inspired because he was around doing the book covers at the time that they were creating He-Man. Okay. A bit of that lemon and the white again. See, I just keep bouncing around from that colour to that colour to that colour, sort of knocking sort of areas on the head, finishing areas. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, it is the colour palette. All right. Now, just sort of analysing where I'm at. That's why I'm sort of at that little pregnant pause there. I think what we'll do now is I'm just having to play just defining these little bits, and we'll start shifting our weight over to the gauntlets and then her headpiece. And maybe by the time we get to the headpiece, we might have a Kenny Coppertone appearing. Maybe. All right. A little bit of flesh tone just there in the middle. All right, let's get rid of those highlights just hicking there. Now, so I think let's have a look at, just want to quickly look at this reference again for a second. Let's have a look here. All right, so she's got you got those Looney Tune mannerisms, Kenny. Shut up, shut nap. Well, we're probably at the 2:55 hour mark, so we're really at the wrap-up point anyway. So as much as I wanted to try and get this done today, we're probably going to run out of time. How do you feel about us me announcing our little next project while you're on the line anyway? Maybe we can do that. All right, so we're going to do those white fluffies and see what Kenny decides about that. So I've just got a little bit of Payne's grey, a bit of warm grey, and I'm just going to sort of fluff in a bit of that endangered species that she's decided to line her armour with, like the boot lining. And then what we do is that yes, and as in you want to do the announcement for our next series, or yes for the endangered species? All right. And then while that's sort of reasonably wet, I can go in with the white. Oops, too much white. Go with the white and sort of lick the edges a little bit, and that gives it the sense that it's white rather than grey, and it just gives us a little bit of highlights. So, all right, so we're just about getting there now. All right. Okay, we'll do the announcement. So, while that's settling, I'll just move it there. I'll start with the trailer, Kenny. So let's have a look here. Here we go. Alrighty, so we've got a bit of pressure on to make it look good to keep up the trailer now. So our next series that we're going to be working on sort of every second week is that we're going to do a battle victory series. So the idea for that is, yeah, the idea for that is that we're going to choose, we're not even going to choose, we're going to spin a wheel of chance. And I've loaded the wheel up and I'm going to show you the wheel in a minute because we're going to choose one for Kenny and one for myself. And we'll spin a wheel, we'll get our characters at random. The characters are everything from Marvel, DC, independent works, animation, you name it. And if you've got any characters you can think of that we may not have included, we'll absolutely throw them in as part of our Invictus series. So what our images were going to look like is that it's going to be the character after the battle. So that's, this character, male or female, has secured damage, ripped clothing, armor damage. Maybe there's, for example, like environmental damage around them. And Kenny and I will have different characters, and it'll be kind of like a Mortal Kombat Street Fighter versus. Like, that's the way it'll be sort of played out as we're going. I don't have Rocketeer. I'll add that in. Let me just add that in right now. So, I'm just going to add Rocketeer in now as Chris brings it up. Can't believe I didn't have Rocketeer. It's my son's favourite. All right, so here we go. Save that. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to have a look at the spinning wheel. Are you ready for this, Kenny? Because this is going to be our characters for next week. All right, so present, share screen. So I'm trying to figure this out now. Usually Kenny does this bit. Damn it, Kenny. That one. Okay, got it. All right, here we are. All right, we're going to spin the wheel. Kenny's first. Here we go. All right, what we get? Right, Kenny got Ghost Rider. All right, now we'll spin my one. Okay, there we go. Did that work out all right? I couldn't even see our screen. So, Kenny, you got Ghost Rider, and I got Hawk Girl. So, next week, if you're following along with us, you can choose either of those characters. You've got a week now between now and then to prepare your drawing, and we're going to draw along together. So, it's Battle Invictus. So, it's after the battle has happened. How the character is either posing or standing or flying, whatever they might be doing. That's our verses. So between now and then, Kenny will advertise our little screen verses. Was like, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and we'll do our first episode next Saturday for you guys and Sunday for me. All right. So, in saying that, that's just about the show for today. So, I'm going to pop up our contact card. And if you are interested in buying either work from Kenny or myself, we both have Etsy shops. You can check those out. That was quick. Let me just throw it up again. And everything from Kenny's trading cards to my trading cards to our works that we do here in Masters and previous works, sequential pages, you name it, are all on those sites. At the least, please reach out and subscribe and follow and comment on the videos on YouTube. That's a nice, easy, free way of doing things for us. And it helps us to get the word out there, to beat the algorithms, and to keep the show moving and growing, which is what we all want to do as we continue with what we're doing here. Back to the drawing board. Kenny, is there anything you want to say in the comments on the way out the door today? If not, I'm going to wrap us all up, and we will see you next week. So I hope everyone has a great week and take care of yourselves. And I'll see you.